against the clock. Go, don't stop. We against the clock.
Makes no difference what you're going through. You're gonna make it.
One gospel says this in verse number 2. My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into diverse temptations. Can somebody say amen? Now, flip over to St. Luke 13, verses 10 through 13. And when you have it, please shout at me and say, I got it. Of course, you can also look at the screen. It says this, and he was teaching in one of the synagogues on the Sabbath. And behold, there was a woman which had a spirit of infirmity. Bowed down 18 years, she was bowed together and could no wise lift herself up. And when Jesus saw her, he called to her and said unto her, Woman, thou art loosed from thine infirmity. And then he laid hands on her, and immediately she was made straight, and she glorified God. Can somebody say amen to the reading of the word? For a few short fleeting moments, I want to share this thought with you: when the wounded worship. Would you look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, I know you might be wounded by life, but something happens. You're not talking to me. Say, something happens when the wounded worship God. Let me hear you worshiping right now. Clap your hands and give God praise. And I was a pretty good track runner. I ran the 110 high hurdles. I ran the 100 and run the 200. And on this particular track, particular meet, I was ahead. I was running. I was doing my best. Pastor, I was ahead probably by about 4 or 5 hurdles. But somehow, after I got to maybe about 3 or 4 hurdles from the last hurdle, my back leg hit the hurdle, and I went tumbling down. And so you know how the asphalt is, you know, on these track and fields. It wasn't the soft rubber stuff. This was the old asphalt. And so now here I am running. 1, 2, 3, jump. 1, 2, 3, run. And all of a sudden that back leg hit that hurdle, and I went tumbling down. Somebody say tumbling down. And I went tumbling down, and go Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. But in the background, I was so hurt, but in the background, I heard my coach say, Stephen, get up. My classmates saying, Stephen, get up, get up, get up, get up. You're almost to the finishing line. You're almost there. Get up, get up, get up. But I was so wounded by the fact that I had fallen. At 2 or 3 hurdles from the finishing line, I just wallowed in the wounds. My legs were scratched up. My elbows were scratched up. My face was bloody. I was all messed up, wounded. Even though I was right at the finishing line, I would have loved for somebody to shut up at that high school reunion because somebody thought that was a great story to bring up. But I want you to understand that somehow God is now teaching us a little bit of a lesson through my unfortunate story, that sometimes in life we start off strong. Sometimes in life we start off running the race with confidence, with focus and determination. In the beginning, the marriage is strong. In the beginning, the business is making record profits. In the beginning, the new job that you're on, everything is going well. But then something grabs your attention. Something causes you to hit something or hit somebody. Something happens, and what was now a great race, what was now something that you looked like you were going to be a winner, now has you stumbling. And you can't seem to get up. It was the cancer that the doctor says that you have. It was a terrible accident. And now your world is rocked. Now your world is changed. Now you find yourself banged up, tripped up, and wounded. And rather than getting up and dusting yourself off, you and I find ourselves waddling in our wounds, waddling in depression, waddling in the things that hurt us. You got to understand that when we look at St. Luke 13, that is very much the picture that I see with this woman that Luke described. We don't know her name. We don't know where she's from. We don't know her origin. We don't know whether she's rich. We don't know whether she's poor. We don't know anything about her. But for 18 years, she's wallowing in some kind of wound. For 18 years, she's wallowing in some type of pain. Theologians seem to suggest to us that when this woman seemed to have a malfunction that started in her brain, they seem to suggest that it started in what's called her cerebral cortex. It's the part of your brain that you need for thinking and processing. It's the part of your brain that you need to perceive things. It started out in her mind. But it was so consumed her mind that it went from something in her mind to something spiritual. And then went from something spiritual to now being bowed down. And it affected her physical nature. Look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, neighbor, he's talking to me. It affected her spiritual nature. And I know some of us can attest to that on today, that something started out as a small sickness. Something started out as a small disease. Something started out as a small habit. In the beginning, you had control over it. In the beginning, you seemed to have it under your grips. But for some reason, you dwelled on it in your mind a little bit too long, and now it's consuming your spirit. And now it's now consumed, and now you are contorted physically. Because every time we see you, all we see is the physical nature of what has consumed you. Yeah, look, why do I want to celebrate this woman? Because even though she dwelt with an infirmity for 18 years, she still had the presence of mind to go to the synagogue to worship God. Somehow, she got herself together to say, if I could just come to the temple, maybe there is an opportunity to worship God. And I came all the way to New Seasons Church from a little town in Salisbury to tell my friends in Nashville, to tell you with a word. You might be wounded by domestic violence. You might be wounded by disappointment. You might be wounded by the bad habits. But the mere fact that you got up on this morning and put your clothes on and took yourself a shower and got you some breakfast, some pancakes, some eggs, some bacon, got your children dressed, make sure that you had gotten your teeth wet and put your Sunday best on, is an indication that there is a miracle waiting in the temple right now. Somebody shout glory. Because something happens when the wounded worship. Something happens when people that have been wounded by life lift their hands and say, Lord, I still love you and I still glorify you. As a matter of fact, can y'all take about 30 seconds, no matter what kind of wounds you got, can you show a preacher how you give God praise even when you got wounds in your life? Show me how it's done.